Gerald Ha,
Yes.
John Helge,
Here.
Dennis Otto,
Here.
Vidar Liram, absent, and Sam Corum.
Here. Excellent. You got the agenda in front of you. I emailed the agenda out earlier last week. Are there any additions to the agenda? Anybody want to add anything today? Hearing nothing, the agenda is approved. At this time, we'll take comments from citizens. Ms. Teller, would you like to address us?
Jen Teller, 712 Harbor Drive, Manistee. I have a couple just simple requests that I'd like to throw out there for you. I wonder if there's any chance that the online form for becoming a tree commission member could be made fillable. The application for a tree trim, I believe, is now fillable, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm wondering if that could also be done, just to make it an easier thing for people to do. This would be easier all the way around. They wouldn't have to come to the DPW or to the City Hall and just do it from home. And then, of course, I'm hoping that a vote of 2/3 majority, which would be 3 yeses, would bring back the trim request so that the disc golf view could be discussed with that particular limb being trimmed back. The one cement round is at the top of the hill in the back of 714 Harbor Drive, and that limb is right there as an obstruction to the view from that particular hole up there. So I just think it would make it just so much nicer because of, the view shed to Lake Michigan. So if you get a chance to walk over there and take a look at that, it might be worth seeing how that limb obstructs. But anyway, what I'm here for is just to actually thank the Tree Commission for your continuing work on the policy to deal with view shed maintenance to water. With new information that has recently been brought to light by the county planner when asked to review the City of Manistee master plan for the Planning Commission, they approved that master plan as written. And it can be viewed online at manistee.mi.gov/292/master-plan. And then you go to page 66, and you can read it in the email that was actually sent to you earlier last week. It starts on page 65, and it says that the form and vitality of any community is defined by how its citizens see the way land is used and how that use relates to their daily life. As a result, the way we use land is linked directly to the quality of life in the city of Manistee. Yes, a view of water improves daily life, and yes, view of water is linked directly to the quality of life in the city of Manistee. And yes, the City of Manistee Master Plan states that view should be maintained, not only for commercial development, but also for residential areas and recreational spaces. No financial requirements were alluded to, just that view be maintained. Simple, flexible, concise. An application, the county arborist would approve, and the DPW would do it. No fear was expressed for an abundance of requests, just that view be maintained. They must trust that common sense will prevail in view shed maintenance. So I'm hoping that with your discussions, you will be able to put together a plan that is going to be simple and flexible and concise when it comes to maintaining those view sheds that the city already has said that they want preserved. So that was really astounding when I read that. It was the first time that I had actually seen that the city approves of view maintenance. So I know there's been so many comments about how, oh, there's just going to be so much trouble with this. People are going to be hundreds, perhaps, who knows how many people are going to want viewshed. But obviously, the city isn't too concerned about it. They want view maintained, no matter how many people would apply. So as long as you use that arborist, who's paid for by the county, by the way, and he cannot accept a double payment. He mentioned that originally to Mr. Helge, and then again when he came personally and talked to the board. So
30 seconds.
that cost is already taken care of. And then the arborist determines if the tree is even eligible to be trimmed. And if it isn't, over, done with. There you go. So this is about just trimming limbs, not about cutting trees down for this view shed issue. So I hope you'll just continue to work on it, and hopefully it'll be come to fruition very soon. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, the next thing on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our last meeting. Those are in front of you. Those are emailed to you this afternoon. Again, I want to thank Mr. Mikula for taking notes, and really thank you, Katie, for transcribing them. You know, you did well. We missed you, by the way, not being here. Are there any additions, corrections to the minutes as you see them in front of you?
Give me a minute to review it.
Absolutely.
I didn't see it on my internet. Looks good for me.
Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, we will accept the minutes. They're approved. Okay, now we're into unfinished business. And Jerry, I'm going to call on you as chair of the special committee to review the Harbor Springs Vegetation Management Plan to make your report. Jerry, just so you know, we've got the documents that were emailed out earlier that you have a hard copy of there in front of you. We've got those. We can put those up on the screen. Also, which one would you like to start with?
Well, if everybody has, well, we can start with the Manistee City Property View Site Management. Manistee City Property.
The view site management one. There we go.
Right, view site management. I know we presented it at our last meeting. There was a few questions, a few comments. I have since put some emails out requesting what needs tweaking, what needs to be changed, etc., and so on. The feedback that I got, I joined with my committee members again. We tried to incorporate the feedback we had, and what you see in front of us is the end result. And that's where it's sitting, and we're going to present it and let you move forward with it now.
Very good. Katie, could you scroll through just for our benefit? And again, I was not on the committee. I know Dennis, you were, and Vitor. But let's just start here. Again, it looks good to me so far. You're putting a lot of the responsibility on the property owners to start the process, right?
Absolutely. That's where it has to start from, the property owner.
Yep. Okay, the restored view being requested must have existed when the current property owner took ownership of the property.
Correct.
Evidence of view that existed should be provided if possible. So if I buy a home here tomorrow and I want that limb trimmed off so I can see Lake Michigan, that limb was there when I bought the property.
That's correct. That's correct.
So SOL. I'm kind of,
That's absolutely correct. In my opinion, what you see is what you paid for and what you moved into. If you didn't like the view, then you had the choice of not buying the property or accepting the property as is.
okay. Dennis, you were on the committee when this was discussed and everything. Does that ring true with you also? Okay, how about you, Sam? You're like me, you're an outside observer, fresh set of eyes. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's what we had talked before, and I talked with Jerry in between this meeting and our last meeting, and I did offer some things up. I gave him some things that, you know, in my opinion, maybe cleaned up some things, and we'll have to go through that. I haven't seen where we're at with that yet. But yeah, that's exactly, you know.
You wouldn't mind, just again, we need to have you closer to the mic, just so
Yeah.
the public can make sure to hear.
No, this is exactly what we had talked about.
What kind of proof, what kind of evidence of you that existed would be appropriate, Jerry?
I guess a photograph. You know, what I'm looking at is this deal is set up that when you moved into the property, you took a photograph of all the views you had around there. And then 10 years from now, you're getting mad because the city is not taking care of this property out here. And then we go back and fill out one of these forms and you say, hey, this is the picture, this is the view I had when I moved into the house. Now, city, let's bring this view back that I paid money for.
Okay. So again, somebody moves into Manistee because they love the opportunity to live on Lake Michigan, right?
Correct.
I mean, I love the opportunity to live on Lake Michigan, even though I'm, you know, probably half a mile away from the lake shore.
But John, you gotta remember, when your house was built, the one you lived in, you had a view of Lake Michigan.
Well, I still do. I got one from the third floor bathroom.
But you had one from the ground
See the
floor.
lake. But
Better take a picture
I
of
better
it.
take a picture from there.
Exactly.
outside.
Yeah, but bottom line is, okay, I just want to make sure we're comfortable with that.
Can you keep scrolling up?
Loss of view is due to overgrowth and lack of trimming, okay,
How-
that's good.
I'm curious how you define overgrowth and lack of trimming.
Just natural growth of the tree is the way I would say.
It would be, Jeff, one of those things where when John moved in, he had a view, took his pictures, and 10 years later, he walked out there and said, oh my God, I can't see that again. The tree has grown up with extra growth and so on, and you may have a few wild trees in there, non-trees that just plopped in there from the squirrels and so on. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, there's really, I could think of two instances where we trim trees in the city. One is along the streets for plowing, so it doesn't create an obstruction for the plow trucks and the equipment. Sidewalks are the same thing. And then the other is as directed by the tree commission. So that's why I just asked the question, because in general, we don't trim trees to keep them the same size. They just grow naturally.
I can understand that, and I would go the same way, but down the road, something's gonna change.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, you know, you see these trees after 15 years got so big, and yes, we gotta go back and do something about it now.
Okay.
Item 1 sub E, the loss of view is not, that's emphasized, due to intentional planting of vegetation for erosion control and or beautification of city property by the city. I think this is important because, yeah, erosion control could be a significant issue obviously as the shoreline changes.
Correct.
So,
And more so in the last several years, when we've had the Lake Michigan levels up probably 2 feet higher than they are now.
right.
We've had a lot of shoreline that has been washed away because of the high level and high winds. And now it's time to perhaps go ahead and plant some more vegetation along the shorelines because the lake levels are down and the shoreline may stay per historic levels and changes and so on. pretty much the same as it is right now for the next 10 years.
Yep.
So if you don't do some kind of vegetative management there, you're gonna have that exposed soil continually washing away when it rains.
So I got that, and I'm in total agreement with erosion control, but the concept of beautification of the city property. So here's where we plant a tree, I don't know, let's say we plant a tree somewhere in the marina, and somebody with one of these new homes that's going in across from the marina says, I wanted to see the river. You know, I thought I was buying a view to the river. We plant that tree there on that marina property because we want the marina property to be, you know, good looking. I mean, you know, beautification is one thing. Yeah.
I think a prime example is Cherry Street. Back in 1997, when the city, in 98, when the city upgraded Cherry Street and put the islands in, it wanted to put in trees for beautification. And the owners of Lighthouse Landings objected to that and simply could, before that project, take a picture and say, there's no trees.
I've got to.
Now you can't put a tree there because that's going to obstruct my view. But it's intended for beautification.
Okay, so what would happen if, in that case, with this, what we're proposing here?
So the comments that I'm making are trying to keep us thinking, we want this to be very fair.
Yep.
And I think very concise, because you don't want a lot of loose ends in it, right?
Yep.
Because then it can be interpreted many different ways, and I think when this goes before the city attorney, he's going to be probably substituting language that's very direct.
Okay.
So when I ask questions, it's just I understand what the intent is.
So, you know, by the way, the guys, the way we're going to proceed with this, if it's all right with the committee and all right with the quorum here, is we're going to hopefully approve this today, and then Jeff is going to take it to the city attorney. The city attorney then will, you know, do his magic on it. But it's entirely possible, and the reason I'm asking a lot of questions, it's entirely possible he may call me and say, what did you intend to do here, right, as a chairperson? So that's why I'm asking a lot of questions.
Sure.
I'm still a little bit confused about beautification. So here, take that same situation, take Cherry Street. The way I'm reading this right now is all you got to do is say beautification and the tree goes in.
The way this is written, that would be exempt from, so that could be planted.
Right, but you elected not to plant trees back in '98.
We did.
Or you did plant trees.
But in that situation, out of respect, we met with the condo owners, and I was on the engineering team then, but we met with the condo owners and said, we want to beautify this. We sure there's benefit to you to beautify it. So what could we plant, or what are your concerns, and what can we do that then doesn't become a long-term issue for you? So we planted small ornamental species.
You did not plant 150-foot.
We didn't plant maples or spruce,
Sequoias. Yeah, sequoia.
But it sounds like both parties got satisfaction from what ended up with everything.
Yeah, and that was a proactive effort, but I'm just saying today, using that scenario, if I was a condo owner and said, can't plant a tree in front of me because that's going to block my view, and I took a picture yesterday and it's clearly not there, the way this is written says, but if the city's doing it to beautify, then the homeowner can't object.
But there again, I would say that perhaps if it got down to that point, the issue would go to city council, and so they would take a vote there and say, Jeff, we agree with the citizen over here. Don't plant that big maple tree out there. Plant something else. And you're going to walk away stuffing your feet, but you're going to plant something else.
Well, no, and see, Jerry, I kind of disagree with you because it's not that shouldn't be put on the Department of Public Works or the city engineer. That's the tree commission. That's why this document is saying, right now, we're saying, you know, if we use the word beautification, we can plant anything we want. I mean,
You could recommend anything you want, you just have to think about what the consequence or objective of each statement and
Right.
wording is.
right.
Yeah.
And again, what you did with the Cherry Street situation was use common sense and basic customer service, you know, met with the people, discussed it. What I wanna avoid here is, you know, in 30 years, we may not be here. I don't know about you, but
Well,
we may not be.
and I think a very current example, and I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to argue either way, just trying to get some discussion and some thought, but we just planted the 2 leftover trees from our tree program at Morton Park. Now, I'm sure there's houses on Sibbin Street that have views of Manistee Lake through that park. And if they have a picture that was taken last week, and in 10 years, when those maples grow up, they could object. So if we said we did it for beautification, the way this is written, that would mean they could stay.
The trees will stay.
If we said they're for shade,
Right.
then we probably would trim them, right?
So again, all I'm questioning is, do we need to have that in here? Because I think what it does is it actually limits the common sense. What do you think?
Should we have something in there that the city will not plant trees that are potentially grown up and block the view? Why can't we keep something, like you said, you planted them short, lower for the condos? I mean, why do we have to say that it's any kind of vegetation goes in there, and if it's 50 feet tall, well, that's too bad. I mean, you could beautify a lot of areas without putting in 30, 40-foot trees too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying to try to alleviate the problem.
Just take out.
Like I said, if you got a picture of none.
Yeah.
No trees, all of a sudden you want to plant them.
Well,
Hold on a minute.
I think the flip side of that is like at Man-Made Lake, where we're not planting trees are growing naturally. And so under this scenario, when I bought my cottage, I had a view of Man-Made Lake and Lake Michigan. Now there's some natural trees that have grown up and are blocking my view. Those weren't planted for beautification, right? They weren't intentional. Nature grew them. So again, they're just the way this is written, that they'd be eligible for consideration for a trim.
Okay, may I make a suggestion
Yes.
that might satisfy everybody? Where it says and/or beautification, wipe that out.
I think I'd be comfortable with that.
Okay. How about the rest of the group?
If
Could I
your
make-
committee, you're the.
Could I make a motion to remove and/or beautification by the committee or the members of the tree commission here?
Motion's on the floor. Is there any
Motion's on the
discussion?
floor.
Second? We need a second.
I second that.
Sam
Okay.
seconds. Okay,
I don't think you have to vote on that. I think that's just a consensus.
you have to vote, what,
Well,
we have to make a motion to
All right.
change this because it comes off committee.
Okay.
I think we're gonna get it. Is there any discussion?
we voted.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay.
Real quickly.
Yeah.
Going back to C here,
Yep.
when we talk about having a picture of view or no view, whatever where you're going.
Yep.
If we can't come up with a picture or they don't, who decides what's going to get trimmed and not trimmed? That's something I just thought about
Okay,
too.
great point. I would say in that situation, that's where we get the arborist engaged. For example, when I bought this house 10 years ago, I could see Man-Made Lake. And now I can't. Okay? And what you gotta ask is, was it already obscured, 10 years ago? And that tree is so big, that limb was there, that tree was there when you bought the place. Now you want us to cut it down, okay? That's the issue. That's the only way we could do that, in my opinion. Does that answer your question?
Yes and no.
Just for my clarification, what I thought I heard you say was you have the arborist make a determination that based on the view that exists or the lack of view that exists today, Mr. Helge bought his house 10 years ago. Isn't it reasonable to infer that there was a view 10 years ago based on those trees and their growth and species and?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's a little bit of a dilemma if you have no pictures. And he says, hey, I had a view. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's not, I'm just trying to alleviate how we're gonna handle that, side with the city or side with the homeowner. If there's no proof, if you have no pictures of anything, how are you gonna decide who to not to cut or to give a view or not to give a view?
Well,
I think the third
maybe,
party, Dennis, is gonna have to be that arborist, he's gonna have to tell us, was there, based on what you see now, was there a view 10 years ago?
Well, that's what I'm asking. We gotta come up with something so.
evidence of a view could be an affidavit.
We're gonna,
Okay, I'm sorry.
I would think evidence of a view could be an affidavit, a sworn statement by a previous owner, by the current owner.
Yeah.
I mean, there's different forms. I think there's different forms other than just a photo.
yeah, I'm just saying, how are we gonna, how are we gonna handle that if there's
Yeah.
no picture proof of what it looked like, 10 years ago?
Sure.
I could sit there and argue, hey, there was nothing there. Well, then where are we if the guy wants or the woman wants or the homeowner wants to get it trimmed? We're stuck then a little bit. So where does that put us then? Do we automatically say we'll trim it? Or we automatically say we can't trim, we're not gonna
I
trim?
think, well, we'll get the arborist engaged, okay? And you'll see, as we read on in this, the arborist must be engaged in this process.
Okay, then maybe we should include that in that kind of scenario, an arborist will make the final judgment?
I don't think.
Well, how are you
we
gonna
wanna
cover
tie
that?
your hands that way. I think the final judgment with the input of the arborist and so on is back to the tree commission to make the final judgment.
But I'm saying, don't you have to let people know that?
Well,
If I'm a homeowner and I'm reading this, I'm gonna say, hey, there was nothing there. I want my view back. And we sit here and go, hey, the arborist, it's reasonable to say that the arborist we brought in, he says it wasn't there, but or it was, and now the tree's taken over, okay? But I mean, doesn't the homeowner, whoever's making that request, need to know what we're doing to get there? That's all I'm saying. There's nothing in here about who's gonna give that if there's no picture proof.
I think the other point that 1C says here, 1 sub C, is the evidence must, it should be provided, maybe we should change that to must be provided if possible. And if
I don't, yeah, it is a little bit of a hairy thing if you've got no pictures.
Getting much too detailed for something as simple as it should be.
yeah,
I mean, we're gonna have a case like this that comes up once every 16 years or once every 10 years.
well, again,
But this is something that's gonna be there in the city files someplace for somebody to have a starting point.
yeah,
There's nothing there now.
right, okay. But again, providing evidence that I did have a view, now I don't. Okay? And if the arborist comes in and says, based on what I know about this tree, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whenever you bought this place, it wasn't there, so he sides with the homeowner. Or the arborist says, I'm sorry, but that tree doesn't grow that fast, or that tree,
Or grows that fast.
but it,
So now you don't have a view because the tree grew fast, but it was there.
right.
Okay.
That would be siding with the
That's-
homeowner.
That's,
That would be, the arborist would say,
Right.
yeah, homeowner, yes, I agree.
right.
Or the arborist would say, I'm sorry, no, that, based on my knowledge of that tree species and everything, there was no view when you bought this place.
So are we gonna leave those kinds of decisions basically to the arborist then to decide?
Yeah, that would be my
A
thought.
good chunk of it, yes. But just like John said, if the arborist comes in there and says, yes, that tree, based on the species and so on, is not gonna grow, it's only grown this much in the last 10 years, so the tree was the same, basically, what it was 10 years ago. Or no, the tree is just like a weeping willow tree, it's just gone crazy. And yes, it wasn't there 10 years ago.
So let's look at this from the process that you've laid out,
Yeah.
okay? So as it is right now, and just what we've gone through this document, if a property owner has a view request, the first thing they do is fill out a form. Can you scroll up? Just,
Keep going.
well, let me back up, because hopefully I can give some.
You got to
no,
go into this.
Go up to the top if you would. Right there, stop, okay. So 1A, somebody who wants a tree desired shall complete the form, okay? Next step is you have to make sure it's restoring a view towards water. The next item is bring evidence. The next item is some other thing. But the next step is it comes back to the tree commission.
Right.
So the tree commission has the form, it has the situation,
Yep.
and it has whatever proof has been presented.
Yep.
The next step, the way I understood it at your last month's meeting, is the tree commission makes a determination whether or not it goes to the next step at that point.
Right.
So
The
we have,
next step being,
The next step is,
Being right there.
the next step is number 2.
right?
So if the tree commission says, we believe that there's enough evidence that this should go forward, the next step is it gets assigned to the DPW to work with the arborist, and you can give a specific instruction to the arborist to create an opinion on whether or not that view existed within whatever time period.
Right.
I mean, following your process, it becomes your control.
right. So that's item 2. Can you keep scrolling down to the next page? Okay. The arborist, or, the expert, will meet with the property owner and review the property owner's goals to assess the options and professional vegetation management practice that may be responsible for the sustained growth and health of the vegetation on the city property and preventing erosion, surface runoff, sedimentation, and all that. Is it a good idea? The specialist so engaged will provide a preliminary report to the Department of Public Works, okay, specifying vegetation management plan options that are reasonable, okay? So bottom line is we're asking that specialist to document all of this so we have it on file, okay? And then item 4, Jeff, you bring it back to us, okay? And then that plan, would be then presented to the property owner for their, okay,
Correct.
So there may be situations in number 4 where the DDA
okay,
could be a part of it. If we have trees on the Riverwalk, that's a park, but it's also in the DDA district. So maybe present to the tree commission and or other city commissions.
well, yeah, this special committee tried to cover that with like City Park, that their vegetation is in the City Park area.
Right.
If you want to add the DDA, that's fine, or if you have a.
Well, I just, maybe just a little blanket thing, because
Why don't we
if,
do this? Why don't we ask George,
okay,
how to
all right,
roll
that's fine.
this for us?
Because we are going back, if it is falling in a city park and so on, they're going back to the city park commission.
Yeah,
There's a
So
tagline
we
to it.
just had an example last year in the butterfly gardens next to Fricano's where the DDA said, pull them out. I said, wait a minute, tree commission needs to have a part of this. It's also in a park. It's also at the marina, so the harbor commission should be aware. And I got twisted up 4 ways, but out of respect for all the commissions.
yeah, and it turned out really well, by the way. Okay, so then the property owner reviews the report and then sub A decides not to go forward. So bottom line, they're gonna get a portion of their deposit back because there's costs that have been involved with this. And again, here, I don't see it in 5 sub A. Who is responsible for figuring out, okay, we got your $500, and how much did all this other stuff cost? the city. Okay? So I would think it's the DPW director, or, you know, somebody from your department, Jeff, that would be responsible for this. So, you know, saying it costs us $250 to go through this, and you're gonna get $250 back, right?
Yeah, we've got a process in place right now that does that exact type thing. When you do road breakage or you impact city infrastructure, you place a deposit, and then if you restore that, I return that deposit, and if not, we detail out those costs and with the refund.
All right.
So I think internally, we've already got a process.
Got a process there.
Thank you, sounds good.
So if they decide to go forward with the plan, again, you will estimate total cost of work to do, the city's gonna do the work. Property owner will then pay the total cost minus the application fee. So let's just say it's $1,500, we need another $1,000 from you. So before we, you know, before we take the first crank on that, you know, on that chainsaw, we want that $1,000 in the bank, right?
Right.
Okay. That's good. Anything, and then keep going, or are we done?
That's it for that.
If you,
That's it.
you know, if you've got a set process basically in place right now, you know what it costs, I guess, to go out and look at the tree, right? Or as a scenario, what it would cost roughly, right?
I think we'd have to, I don't know for looking at a tree, but I think there may be very little cost if the arborist isn't charging us. Or there may be some cost for the arborist to make a site visit and then create the report.
Again, siding a little bit, I'm always playing the devil's advocate, siding with the homeowner. When you want to know approximately what the cost is before you're just gonna say, I'm gonna hand over 500, but we may need more. Who would do that really if you were a homeowner?
Initially, you put your application in, your application came with $500. That's in the pot right now. Item B right here, if you decide to go forward with it, Jeff, through the Department of Public Works there, has got a tabulated cost. And if the cost to do the whole job is $1,000, you've already put $500 into the kitty, you have to cough up another $500 for Jeff to go forward. Now, if the potential homeowner says, no, I want to stop right here, and Jeff tabs it up and says, I've got $450 of my time and efforts and whatever it may be involved in this, you deposited $500, you get $50 back. And we close the books.
So
Are we kind of stifling people doing this by doing that?
well,
Like on what? I don't understand.
Well, Jerry, if you're a homeowner, somebody comes and says, I want this roof put on, and you say, well, I need to deposit $1,000 to do the work. But I can't tell you what it's really gonna cost, I may need another $5, but I think, who's gonna wanna do anything if, you
No, the
know,
bottom line is,
right?
bottom line is, no. We're not gonna ask them, they're gonna get a good faith estimate from the Department of Public Works.
That's what I'm asking, where is that in here, any place?
so,
Right there.
so if I can address that.
We'll estimate total costs, including execution of the work as outlined in the plan.
All right,
The way it's written up is, you place a deposit, you start the process. Tree Commission tells you to move forward. Once they tell you to move forward, we engage an arborist to then do an evaluation and a report. The first time we do that, we're gonna know what the cost, we don't know what the cost is. I think in the future, then we can estimate. The $500 is kind of a good faith to make sure that you've got some skin in the game and this is a serious request. If the Tree Commission then says, or then if the private property owner then says, I choose not to go forward, if we have the arborist that we're currently using, there's no cost, you get your $500 back. But say that relationship ends and we have to consult with somebody, then it may be a couple $100 and then they get their deposit back. Before we proceed with any of the work, we will have a fixed dollar amount that has the arborist, the cutting and removal cost, and they have to pay for that before we proceed with the work. So they will have
Anything more.
a final
Once
estimate.
the tree is trimmed, there won't be a third bill come in. There won't, no.
Normally, So if you think about it, when you make like a zoning application or, a lot of these applications, you pay a fee. And that doesn't mean you're going to get a permit. You're paying a fee hoping you get a permit. But if they deny it, you lose that money. At least the tree commission is saying, we don't want you to pay anything more than what it cost. And if it doesn't cost anything, you don't have to pay anything. If I'm understanding that correctly.
Absolutely, that's my vision.
Okay.
Dennis, I might also point out, part A and B, 5A and B, is really going on very concurrently. I mean, the property owner can say, what is all this gonna cost? And Jeff comes up and says it's gonna cost, based on my estimates and everything else, $1,500. You got $500 in the kitty right now. If you wanna go forward, it's $1,000, or you can stop right now. And we'll go forward.
And again, just for your comfort, the rates that the city charges for services or reimbursement is a audited rate that is determined by the state of Michigan. They do it on an annual basis based on the city's financial audits. So they put in a formula of direct payroll expenses plus overhead and fringes. So they determine a rate for a person. And then they also publish an equipment rate for all the equipment that the city utilizes. So when I do work for the state, they are only paying exactly what the cost is. There's no profit built into that. There's
You go, and that's public record.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. So when we do, say,
For instance, plowing the 31 time for the state.
yeah, that's a prime example. That's how the state charges us, is based on those rates and what equipment we used. But just so you know, I use that for all city charges. So when we go out and do install a water service for somebody, or whatever it is, or somebody ran over a hydrant and we had to fix it, we use those same rates so that there's no markup. We're not trying to make money off people. And I have,
Makes sense. Why reinvent the wheel?
no, I'm just saying that's how I would determine the fees.
Right.
The only variable is, to my crew, how many hours will that take?
Right.
Period.
And that would probably entail them having to go out and look at it, come back and tell you, that looks like a 4-hour job.
And
4 hours, 3 guys.
if they've been
Boom.
doing this for a while, they can come back and be very exact on that.
Right.
Within
Well,
a few hours.
we really do need to keep moving. Any other questions on this document that we've just reviewed?
No.
Done.
Hearing none, let's move down. Could you bring up the other document that we have there, that's the form, the management form?
Jeff, I notice do you want a copy of what we're talking about? You're making notes, you want a copy?
I'm making personal notes, but I would like a copy, please.
What?
I would like a copy, please.
Okay, I've got several.
So just very quickly going through this is the form that would be utilized to this, and this is another one where, once we do approve this, Katie, we're going to rely on you, as I think Ms. Teller has a great idea. Anything that we put out on our website, on our page, needs to be fillable. Needs to be, I don't know what the term is, but a PDF that's, that we can work with and then email. Okay, so let's just go through this real quick. It's pretty straightforward in my opinion. Could you scroll down, Kate? Stop right there. Again, reminding the fee is to cover the initial Department of Public Works cost for an arborist or other qualified expert to develop a report and a vegetation management plan. And again, any unused portion of the fee will be returned to the property owner. I think that's an important thing to be right on the document, just like you said.
That's
Okay.
where we put it.
So then we go into page 2, and then we ask for a lot narrative. We want to know from the property owner, what they want done. Okay, keep going. So again, we're reminding them, if approved, this is, again, we're asking the property owner now, the applicant, to initial these statements to confirm that they understand what's going on. And I think that's a smart idea, too. Again,
And I believe the rest is pretty well straightforward also.
I will be interested to see, Jerry, what the city attorney says about that last comment, posting a lien on my property. I understand where we're coming from, we discussed that last meeting, but we'll just see.
So just FYI, the city already has the ability for any city expenses to be placed on the tax rolls for collection. So I think your intention of stating it here kind of puts it up front for people.
Right.
That's what I,
Even if the attorney comes back and says, take it out, that's still a possibility. That's the normal operation for cities.
right up front so they know what
Yeah.
they're dealing with.
Yep.
Okay, any discussion or issues with the form as we're seeing it here?
Not for me.
No, it's good.
What I'd like to do now is, because this is coming out of committee, we don't need to have a second, but I would like just to take a vote for, to document this, that we'll move forward with this view site management plan as it's come out of committee. And we will present it to Jeff, and Jeff will take it to the city attorney. I think it's managing expectations. I don't think this is going to happen before April of next year. That would be my goal. Jeff, if you're going to communicate it to George, I'd love to see us, because it's got to go to the city council also for their approval.
So the process that I would anticipate would be, I will submit this to the city manager and the city attorney for their review. There will probably be some internal discussions on it, and then the attorney's recommended version. At that point, I do think it would be beneficial for the tree commission to vote on recommending that final version from the attorney before it goes to city council. And I don't know what kind of changes. There's always going to be changes.
We'll just have to wait and see what he next changes wise.
But my recommendation would that it come back before you before we take it to council.
I would like to see that happen.
Yep.
That would be a logical way to proceed with this, once George makes changes or
Sure.
suggestions. And it should come back to us and decide, do we want this, or do we just want to throw the whole thing away, or do we want to go with the suggestions? Or maybe we can suggest something back to George that he hadn't looked at. But anyway, yes.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking, this is our final meeting of the year,
Correct.
okay? If we do get it back from George with changes significant, that we want to review, is that something that we can email, that I can email out as a chair, or do we have to have a?
You could certainly, we can certainly share that with the commission. The only issue is you can't have deliberation on it unless it's in a public meeting.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what we'll do.
So
Here's just an idea. Go ahead, Jerry.
I was going to say, I'm hoping you're saying if need be, we just have a special meeting to discuss it.
Right, that's what I'm going to say. And so again, if everybody's okay with this, I just want to get on the record there on this motion to approve the action plan as it's come out of committee. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? It passes. Thank you very much again, special committee, for the work you did on this.
Okay, now one more thing that,
Well, okay, what you got, Jerry?
I'm just going to throw this out so somebody can be thinking about it. Where is this going to sit and reside once it's approved? Is it going to sit by itself, or my feeling was that it should be attached to the tree ordinance as another paragraph.
So.
But anyway, just think about it.
So that's, yeah, that's already something I've thought about, but I would look for legal counsel's opinion on whether or not there's several different forms. It can become part of our general policy, It can become council policy, or it could be an ordinance amendment.
Right.
And we'll see where he thinks that is most appropriate.
Okay,
Just so
Wonderful.
people think about that. between
Absolutely.
now and next time.
absolutely.
My,
Okay.
my guess is it's gonna be a policy, but sorry.
However it goes.
Okay, very good. We're gonna move on because we are going to adjourn at 6, okay? And Sam, I want to apologize. I really wanted to give you 20 minutes because you've done a hell of a job here already. Would you just fill us in on what you've done so far with the tree inventory program? And,
Sure, everybody's got either a copy, and then we could put it up on the screen as well. I met with Lucas a couple of times, and, we went through a lot of things, and I reviewed a lot of the information that I have that we have looked at in the past, the tree inventories and things like that. This is fairly straightforward, and once we're in the city's GIS, and we have an app that we can put on our phone that opens up, these kinds of things. We have to think about what is it that we want to go ahead and include when we go ahead and evaluate a tree in its position and location. So what I did was I went through and I thought about, disease, physical factors, and then I went, the trunk, the roots, the crown, just basic information on a tree. You don't have to get, I don't think, any more involved, because you don't want this to become so laborious that, it becomes a burden to do it. I talked to Andy Huber at the high school, and I can use NHS students and then also high school bio students. I've already got several that want to help us with this survey, and my thought was that whatever we determine as to what we want in the tree description, we can go ahead and put boundaries on those areas that we want to start evaluating. And once the students and also us, we get schooled into how to use this app, it becomes pretty straightforward. This should be an easy one to do. So these are the things that I looked at that I thought were important. So if we want to take a look at that, if you want to omit some or add some.
I just have to say, the concept of having students trained and involved and make this part of their curriculum sounds really exciting to me personally. And then it becomes a year after year thing.
Sure.
Because it may take us time to get through the whole city, and then it may take time to update, and so that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
absolutely. So, this could be a fall project for classes. So the one thing I see missing, though, is I don't see the species of the tree.
Well, I don't know. Are we gonna, that was my thought. Are we gonna identify the tree? Is that what we wanna do? Well, not everyone knows these trees.
Well, there's,
Unless you have an app on your phone and you can hit that and it can give you, the species of the
so
tree.
part of our training that we would, and again, we've got to come up as a commission, and this may be something, if you want to get going on it quickly, Sam, and I'd be willing to help you, okay, as a committee to help you. But we need to develop training, document the training so it can be, reusable year after year
Sure.
after year. But yeah, using the app to identify the species of the tree, absolutely.
Yeah, that can be just, you can, location, photo, species.
Yep. And I think the rest of this is, like I say, I'm looking at this going, this is gonna take less than a minute.
Yeah, it won't
Per
take
tree.
long. Yeah.
Well, geez, you're pretty fast, John.
Well, there-
About a minute to read through this.
No, and I honestly, I think a minute a tree ought to be our goal.
Once they get into it, it should be a goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But yes,
You don't want something that's gonna be laborious and take time.
right. And I think what you've got here are the good basic, at least what we need. But I'm interested in, again, not all of us no one of us is as smart as all of us. Again, think about it. This is the first time I saw it today, but I think we can,
Well, tree name and species, that's
if it's
fine.
all right with you, I'd love to, be able to email back to you saying, think about, can we add this, or, that.
Absolutely.
Like Dennis, I mean, I'm just speaking, thinking about you too. This is the first time you've seen it this morning, this afternoon.
I sort of have I have a question now. This is separate from the things that we have just previously talked about. When could we get started on opening up an app for select people so we could start doing something like this? Now, this has to get put in, am I correct to say that this has to get put into the city's GIS format, so when you open this app up, that needs to meet those standards, but when could we start?
So there isn't a specific app for this. What there is an app that gives you access to the city's GIS. The city would purchase a license, and so we'd have credentials for people to log in through the app to the city's GIS system, and then give permissions to be able to populate this specifically and only.
How do we get the permission for that?
That would just take, that can be done in a matter of a week or so.
Okay,
It's fast,
okay.
yeah.
Is there a significant cost for that license? Is that something that is budgeted for? Or?
It's something that I can absorb. I can absorb it.
How are we gonna go, if we're gonna use students, juniors, seniors, whatever, how are we gonna handle that as far as contacting them or through the school? Is the school gonna set up something?
I'll set something up through the school,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Referring to Andy Huber, Andy is the principal of the high school.
at the high school, yeah.
Okay.
I know a lot of the teachers, and
Start that process possibly to see
Yeah.
what kind of input you get or what they feel about doing it too.
yeah,
We think it's a great idea. They may not either.
Yeah.
no, they love it.
Oh,
They love it. I've already had meetings with them,
Okay.
and they love the idea.
All right.
So when could we get this put into, you gotta get the site license, I suppose.
Yeah, we have to purchase another license, and then I have to hire Spicer to create these fields specifically in there, and then it's good to go, so,
That wouldn't take long to
No.
read that.
no, it's a week or two kind of thing, that's it.
Well, I would think that if you could do that coming out of this meeting, just take that action as quickly as you can. And if you would, Jeff, report back to Sam. Sam's going to be the chair of this committee, this subcommittee, so.
Then in the meantime, we can contact Sam or discuss with Sam through email as to what we might add or.
What other field you wanna put in there?
But he's got everything pretty well covered. Just
Yep.
It's kind of like keep it simple,
Yep. Amen.
facts only.
So, it's great. Sam, thank you very much. Is
I-
there anything else
I-
you'd like to add?
Just for my education, what is abiotic?
Living things.
Okay,
Something that's living. It could be a fungus on the tree.
Okay.
It could be, any kind of beetle or any kind of disease that you see on a tree. So something that would be living, that would be affecting, the tree in a negative way.
okay,
By that, you're looking for, we got mushrooms growing out of the tree.
Yeah,
sure.
and it's bad.
Fungus, mold, it would be, obviously.
Just wasn't familiar with the term, and I like to learn stuff.
Bracket fungus on there, they
Yeah.
know that that's myxomycophida. They know what that is, high school students would. And that's bad for the tree because it'll rot the tree out.
Okay.
Anything else? If not, it's 6:02, and we're dismissed, we're adjourned.
So here, what I'll get is
I gotta run another
location,
meeting.
species, or photo and then species
Be in
beneath.
touch.
God, it feels like it's 100 degrees up here.
And, yeah, on your phone there.